They accused him of basically raping women so they could get out of cases.
Yeah.
So, I'd kind of like to go to YouTube for this. Let's get back to you. Here we go, y'all. Again, we're back with Surviving the System. Myself, my co-host, the Wolverine. We're going to break down Officer Holtzclaw from Oklahoma City was accused of rape some years back. He was convicted. He was sentenced. And there's a lot of people that say he's innocent. Let's take a look. So
I'm always leery when people talk about cops being innocent because that's what everybody wants to jump to when they do something bad.
I'm with you.
Many secret court documents will remain secret after a ruling by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals.
That decision came after nearly a year after the highly unusual and highly secretive case of former cop Daniel Holtzclaw. Fox 25's Phil Cross has broke many of the major developments in this case, and he joins us now with what the new ruling means for the case that split Oklahoma City. Phil.
Mike and Wendy, almost a year ago, prosecutors hoping to keep Daniel Holtzclaw in prison held secret hearings that even the lawyers defending Holtzclaw were not allowed to attend. Now, those meetings happened in the Oklahoma County Courthouse between those key prosecutors and senior members of the Oklahoma City Police Department.
Yeah.
They all played a role in the conviction of Holtzclaw, who is currently serving a more than 200-year sentence for sexually assaulting women while on duty. His attorneys called the secret hearings illegal, but the court said while the defense should have been allowed to participate in them, the effect of not having them there was harmless. In newly unsealed court records, the defense attorneys say they relied heavily on Fox 25's reporting of these unusual proceedings. The court ruled because the judge and prosecutors agreed that they found nothing that could have helped the defense, there was no ground for the defense's complaint. The judges are still keeping quite a bit of records under seal, arguing that they constitute confidential employment records of a former police chemist.
Let me tell you real quick, Corey. So I know you're
well,
not.
You heard it right there. They're already talking about someone else was involved. See, with situations like this with the police, I mean, listen, these guys are organized. Listen.
Oh yeah, they're not street thugs.
And they're not. The difference between the street thugs, these street thugs, they act a lot of them act tough, but they're quick to tell on their homeboy. In these situations, these guys will hold the water because they don't want to tarnish their and they think eventually they'll come back and save them. I'm telling you, these people will keep their mouth shut. Maybe this guy's a fall guy.
Right. No, and listen, it could be. But I'm going to tell you what the accusation was. So the guy, Daniel Holtzclaw, and excuse me if I'm getting his name wrong, was a decorated cop, which we know that don't always mean anything. He had never had any complaints against him. A prostitute came to the police station, and I'm going to pick my words carefully here, because she makes the claim that the cop told her, hey, either let me have sex with you or I'm taking you to jail. Now, if you see this woman, no offense, he had to have had something else he was getting off on. Like 55 years old, an obvious crack addict, very dirty looking. No offense, okay? And when they brought him in and they interrogated him, he just didn't seem guilty to me. Right. But there was a lady cop that was the first one on the case, and she pursued him with venom, went after him. So then she supposedly dug up all these other, but now here's where it gets tricky. Several of the so-called witnesses she drug up said the cop was a 6'3" black man, when in actuality he was a 5'10" Pacific Islander.
I was about to say he didn't far from black.
Right. Their descriptions were way off, so the lady cop corrects them. Says, no, this is what he looks like.
Which is illegal.
Which is illegal. There's several things about it that's sketchy, but in the end, I wasn't there. What do you think? Just with the limited knowledge.
I'm wondering what's up with the. Did he get an appeal? I mean, they
denied his appeal. Yep.
See, to me, that sounds like a whole lot of something going on, because why is this one cop all of a sudden, and you're not, you know how cops usually are, they help protect theirs. You know,
right.
They get them lawyers. Why isn't he getting an appeal?
Well, I'm going to tell you, brother, I think that someone's
out, so he did something.
he's got some enemies high
That's
up.
what I'm saying. He did something or didn't do something that he was supposed to do or didn't do. Something ain't right with that. I'm gonna have to research that. It's the first time I heard
Daniel
about that.
Holtzclaw. Make sure you check that out.
I am.
To our viewers of Surviving the System, give us your thoughts on the Daniel Holtzclaw case.
Yeah, please.
Any info you can give us in the comments, drop it below.
Updates on the case are much
We're going to do a
appreciated.
very quick breakdown of the John Bird case.
Could you state your name, sir?
John G. Birch, B-U-R-G.
He leaves behind a legacy of torture and more than 100 alleged victims. Tonight, officials confirm disgraced Chicago Police Commander John Burge is dead.
Who would ever
CBS 2's
thought
Dana Kozlov is live in
police
the
in
newsroom
Chicago
with more on
weren't
Yeah,
very
oh
good.
my goodness.
Shocker.
Shocker.
Say Burge began torturing them in the 1970s, but it would be years before anyone listened.
Of course.
Could you state your name, sir?
John G. Birch, B-U-R-G.
That man and name are now synonymous with police torture in Chicago.
Let's
For
hear what he
decades,
did.
victim after victim has talked about what they endured by or under the former Chicago police commander's watch. One, Eric Kane, is indifferent about Burge's death.
I could easily say, well, I'm glad that dude gone. He don't deserve to live. No way. But that does nothing for me.
Kane was 20 years old when Burge's detectives coerced him into a double murder confession. He says they broke his eardrum, kicked and threatened him, and kept him from sleeping.
So when they did that, I was willing to do anything they asked me.
He spent 25 years in prison
Oh
before
my
his
God.
2011 release.
Sick. And this stuff happens all the time.
All the time.
All the time, man.
He created something that was not me. I've been struggling to find me ever since I've been out.
Right,
Kane
this
says
man's
he's never
25
been able to
years.
His whole
reconnect with
life.
family or
I mean-
friends, and he's always afraid.
I'm struggling now, still struggling to the very day of every day just living.
He'd rather be talking about Burge's contrition or apologies, which never occurred, not
Wow.
during any civil case
I exercise my Fifth Amendment right.
or after Burge was convicted of lying about police torture.
Wow.
And in death, some still defend Burge's time on the job.
John Birch put a lot of bad guys in prison that belong to be.
Look at this guy.
They're supposed to be there.
But Flint
Yeah.
Taylor, a lawyer who spent 30
That's the
years
people that say
bringing
it's all right
torture
to rape
cases
little
light,
kids 'cause
says
you
there
saved
are
a woman in the afternoon.
125 Burge victims, and the city of Chicago has awarded almost $79 million
The
to many
people
of
pay
them.
for that.
Costed the city
Pending.
$79
The
million.
city's law department
Not
spokesperson
including
says
his
adding
paycheck
legal
every year.
So, you know, is it any surprise that the majority of his victims were minorities?
Oh, no, obviously.
I mean, you know, a lot of these cops in the inner city, and look, I'm not going to bunch all of them in, but I will say they target minorities. And aside from that, if they get a minority denying that he did a crime, it's lies. It's just, you know, ultimately, you get a guy like John Burge, to
At the
me, he
top.
should have died in prison.
Well,
They
see,
said he
he's
was a
at-
commander.
Right.
So if he was a commander, how many other cops did he teach this stuff
And
to?
done elevated to higher levels. Look at the dude right on there right now. He's probably some
Yeah.
high-ranking guy now, and he's talking about
How many
that's
has
a
he
good.
beat?
He's a good guy.
Right. You know.
Come on. Sometimes you got to call black black and white white. It's that simple. I mean,
Well, the same folks that called Saddam Hussein this and that, which I agree Saddam was bad, will allow cops to do some of the stuff that Saddam did.
Right.
Saddam tortured and beat confessions out of that. I would say, and I have said, I'd rather see 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man go to prison. And I mean that.
Well, and I firmly believe, too, I think we've strayed so far of protecting our own and taking care of our own to delegating so much power and authority for other people to protect us. That's what it creates. It creates this issue to where people are not protecting themselves.
I never want to be so reliant on the government to protect me
Right.
that I'll bow down to anything they say.
Of course, why? Because they can take one thing that no one else can take on this earth, and that's your freedom, your time.
And getting your freedom taken is scary. We both know that.
It's crazy, man.
Well, let me tell you, man, the last thing I'll say, honestly, you don't want to feel like you're being policed by the Gestapo. You don't want to feel like if you get arrested, they're going to beat you, torture you, lie on you, trick you, cheat you. You know, that's not supposed to be America.
And it's funny you say lied to you, because you know the Supreme Court actually passed the
That
law
they can lie.
that they can tell
can
you
lie.
whatever they want to get you to say something.
That's outrageous. We're going to do
Street
one
beefs,
last video, and we're calling it a day. And what I want to do to prove a point is let's get somebody who is freed from death row. Let's check this out. We won't watch the whole video, but before we get started, people ask me why I'm sketchy on the death penalty. The reason I'm sketchy on the death penalty is you can't take it back. Okay?
Right.
You get somebody a life sentence, you have time to correct that and overturn said life sentence. Okay? But if you execute somebody, you can't later say, oops, they were innocent, let's dig them up.
And me and you have actually had debates about this in personal talks. And at first I kind of disagreed with you with saying, you know, I like the death penalty. But the more I think about it too, for what you said, for your reason, and then also the fact is, it really spending life in prison in a jail cell, I think, is more punishment.
Oh, it is.
Than
It
death.
is.
I mean,
Knowing
me and
that's
you
your
know, because
future.
we
out there that don't want to live anyways, but are scared to kill themselves.
Right.
So, you know, put
I
them in
couldn't
a,
do it neither. So that's
Right.
right. I'd rather get the death penalty.
But let's check it out. Anthony Ray Hinton exonerated after 30 years on death row.
Anthony Ray Hinton was.
Imagine that.
Prosecution seemed deemed to take my life from me.
58 years old, Hinton
Sad,
lived
man.
more than half
Took his life.
inside a cage, Holman Correctional Facility in southern Alabama. Today, he's seeing and experiencing things for the first time in decades.
Oh my goodness. So
He is welcomed home. A party in his honor.
It's unreal,
hosted by the
man.
Equal Justice
Could you
Initiative,
imagine?
Man,
led
I mean,
by
I did
attorney
almost,
Brian
I did
Stevenson
almost
and his
7
team of
years in the
attorneys
feeling of
who
just
fought for
being back in
decades to win
society.
Hinton's freedom.
Now,
It's unreal.
me and you both know, I mean, some of the stuff I went to prison for, I was guilty of. I don't agree that I should have got the time I got.
Right.
But imagine one day they beat on your door.
Of course, yeah.
They say, come with us,
You
Mr.
killed
Walsh,
someone.
you killed somebody.
It wouldn't surprise me, unfortunately.
But you know what you would think? You would think, well, I didn't do it.
Right.
So I'll
You
be
would-
okay.
You would want to think that.
Right. So you go with them, and the whole time you answer questions, because again, you're thinking, I didn't do it.
Right.
I'll be okay. Then they charge you, put you in a cell. You still are thinking, I didn't do
You got
it.
the truth on your side.
And finally, they sentence you to death.
Man.
Just imagine what these men went through.
Hopelessness, man, on earth, dude. That's just unreal.
Now, some people, I actually had a guy say to me, he said, well, those guys, though, when they get off, they get millions of dollars. Listen.
No, they don't.
First of all, they don't always. Second of all, if you came to me now and said, I'll give you $20 million for 30 years of your life, I would tell you no.
Listen, I've had this discussion with a lot of my friends, man. Like, hey, what would it be worth for you to sit in jail for 5 years? You know, I'm like, man, I don't know.
Nothing.
A lot of things can happen in 5 years
Right.
that you can't buy back. You can't purchase. So
When you're in the pen, you're basically alive while you're dead, or dead while you're
it's like
alive.
a box. I explain it like a box on a shelf.
Yeah, they put you in a box, and you know your family's out there, but you can't touch them. You know life's going on out there, but you can't participate. Okay, it breeds mental illness. It really does. It breeds mental illness. People come out of it; they're not mentally fit anymore.
Aggressive.
Yeah. Look, I'll say this last thing. When I came out of jail in 2004, I was an angry human being.
Man.
I got in street fights. That first couple of years, you asked my wife, every month I was getting in street fights. I just had so much rage built up in me. And that's what the system for tuning in. Make sure you share our videos, man. Help spread the word.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to
Subscribe to
all.
Demon Boys. Bye,
Subscribe to Demon Boys. Shout out to my brothers and sisters still doing time.
Man.
We with y'all. We don't want to see y'all suffer.
And all my people up there at the federal penitentiary, Hazleton, man, get at me. Tell your people to hit me up, man. I've been trying to get out a couple people up there, man. If y'all know who y'all are, hit me up.
Huntinsville Correctional, Mount Olive Correctional, you know what you had. Hey, much love, y'all. Keep your mind strong. Peace.